Welcome to Power Yourself, where I talk about the most important topic in the world, you. Welcome. Today's episode, we're going to talk about setting goals. So looking at those big goals in your life and describing them and really deciding what they actually mean to you and what they are. A lot of times in life, we know we want a happy life, but do we specifically know what we want to achieve? Sometimes taking that time to reflect and really decide what you want to achieve in life can help set you towards achieving that, can help set you really on that path so that you can obtain the things you truly want in your life. So the first part would be asking yourself, what are some big goals that you actually want to achieve? And then we're going to consider maybe what can be some small goals that you can put into place so that you can slowly start to build your confidence and ultimately allow you to stay interested to achieving that main goal. So identifying what your big goals are in life. What do you actually want to achieve? Take the time, reflect, write out what you want to achieve. Maybe within the next 5 years, maybe within a year or a couple of months. Nobody can determine your time frame, but just looking at what do you actually want to achieve and allowing you some space and time to reflect on this. Then basically you're going to have to look at each goal and then figure out what are some stepping stones that you have to complete in order to get that main goal. These mini goals are crucial, okay? They're really going to set you up to succeed. Not only are they going to help you stay interested, it's also going to help you achieve and build confidence by you completing these small tasks that are lined up and associated with these bigger tasks. It's going to allow you that confidence in yourself to know that when your energy and determination is behind that mini goal, you have the ability to reach it. Okay, so really lining up those mini goals in relation to achieving that bigger goal. And like I had mentioned, it's really going to help you stay interested. So sometimes we can reach for these goals that are so big and they're so far away, we start to almost consider them as not attainable, as if, I can't even do this. Or maybe start to doubt our ability in achieving it at all. In reality, it could be that we might not even know where to start. It seems so big and really beyond us in our current state that we haven't really identified that plan or path to get there. So it becomes this big attainable thing, which is why those mini goals can help set you up. They can really help almost give you that directional path to help you achieve that main goal. So that's a little bit about goals and then making sure that you really set up mini goals around those. But what I'm actually going to get into for the majority of today is talking about how to set them up. How do we even start? How do we consider what's attainable and what's not? So what we're going to do is look at something called SMART goals. So specifically, we're going to walk through what a SMART goal is, and then I'll give you guys some examples so that we can take this away from today and help incorporate it into your life to help set you up to succeed. So first up, SMART goals stand for specific, measurable, achievable and attainable, and relevant and timely. And we're basically going to look at how do we create this bigger goal for ourselves, and also the SMART goals are going to set us up for how do we create those mini goals as well. Okay, so SMART goals get you to clarify your ideas. Sometimes something becomes so unattainable, like I had mentioned before, that we really don't know where to start. So it's first of all allowing you to focus your attention, basically use your time and resources and plot out what are these specific things and how do you actually move towards them. The way I look at SMART goals is it's basically a tool to create criteria to help you improve the chances of really succeeding in attaining your goals, really setting yourself up to succeed. It's about asking yourself a lot of questions, basically to understand and determine what your goal is and what that actually looks like. So really visualizing, really self-reflecting here, and spending the time to clearly define what your goals are and how you can actually achieve them. Something I read lately that's really sticking with me here is something from Patrick Lencioni. And he talks about really setting those clear expectations for other people, and he also references it towards yourself too. And he talks about how people like to win. So basically, what you can think of with these goals are we're telling ourselves how we can win. How can we achieve that life that we want to lead? So really setting up what success is and how can we go about getting that. So let's specifically look at each of those letters. Okay, so for the SMART goals, so starting with the S, being specific. Okay, so be really specific about what you actually want to accomplish here. You have to be extremely clear. Okay, who needs to actually be involved for you to achieve this? What are you actually trying to accomplish? So it's going to be like those who, what, when, and why questions. So when, have a time frame, have an idea of how you want to achieve this and the time frame you want to achieve it in. Why? What's the reason for this goal? Why do you even care? Is it actually lining up with the version of yourself that you want to become? So as we go through each of them, I'll look at maybe an example that I would use. And for this one, I'm going to try to be very specific, okay, to give us maybe that clear understanding of what we want to try to do in these particular sections. So that specific piece, okay, being specific. So maybe my goal is to be healthy, okay, so that's one of my goals always, but to be healthy. So it's about digging deeper on that. What do I need to ask myself? What does that actually mean to me? And if I ask myself questions and I dig deeper with that healthy, for me, it lines up with eating right and also exercising. So it's those two pieces. So that healthy can be different for every person who asks themselves that question. The important thing is to determine what does that mean to you. So healthy in this situation for me, for my specific piece, it's going to be my goal statement. And my goal statement associated with being healthy is going to be that I want to show up in my life, I want to eat right, and I want to exercise. And that to me is going to determine a healthy lifestyle. So guys, I know that happened quick. Obviously, for me to be able to give you that example, I always prep for these sessions. So know that it's not something that's going to come to you as quickly. And it shouldn't. Take time. Own it. Own that piece. Define what it means to you. And don't take anybody else's definition. So the more specific that you can make it and the more your own that you can make this, the more you're really setting yourself up to succeed. When we go on with these loose kind of definitions and other people's versions of what we should be incorporating in our life, we don't own it the same. We don't show up in our life and we don't try to attain it the same way. So I would very much encourage you, take the time, allow some self-reflection. What's a goal for you that helps lead you in that desired version of your life that you want to achieve? Okay, really be specific here. And like I said, owning your own definition is definitely a huge asset when it comes to being specific. Next up, we have M. So M's going to be for measurable here. So in the SMART goals, we're at M, and it's going to stand for measurable. So in your goal, how can you measure if you're attaining this goal or not? Now, I gotta admit, this is an area I struggle with, especially if my goal is a little bit more abstract, so it's not that clear directional path. But here's the thing. The measurable piece is really important. This is going to allow yourself to be able to make sure you're on that right path, to make sure that you're working towards what you want to achieve. So as abstract as your goal might be, allow yourself to pick criteria to show up and actually measure yourself. Okay, get some clarity around this because I promise you it's going to lead you in the right direction. So with that measurable, you're going to look at what are you going to use, like I said, to determine if you're meeting that goal. A question you can ask yourself is, what does reaching this goal actually look like in your life? How would that show up? And then it's the ability to be able to track that progress as you work towards it. So referring back to my example of eating right and exercising on a regular basis, my measurable piece would be that piece that I stay within. Maybe I'm weighing myself, or maybe I'm using a measuring tape around certain aspects of my body. Okay. The reason I'm using this example is because it gives us that specific number. So let's say my goal weight, maybe, who knows? You can only determine what it's good for you, but let's say mine would be 150. Okay, so let's say my pound weight is at 150, and that's what I want to stay towards. And then maybe that exercising on a regular basis, maybe I break that down and I determine how many days a week I actually want to show up and exercise. That way, this is something you can keep track of. Am I making progress or am I falling a little bit behind? So for today's example, I'm going to use the pound weight, let's say of that 150, and then for days of the week I exercise, maybe I'm going to say it's 5 days a week. Okay, that doesn't mean it's going to be a strenuous workout, but just my goal, so that big goal, it's going to be maybe that 5 days a week. That's what I'm going to work towards, some kind of activity, achieving that 5 days a week. Now that I have those measurable aspects of my goal in place, it allows me to take that pulse. It allows me to step back, check in. Am I working towards this, like I said, or am I working against this in the actions that I choose to show up and participate in every day? That's a big thing. It's a big question to ask yourself. And it's something we need to get really comfortable doing. I talked about accountability in a past episode, and I'm sure I'll talk about it in many more. But it's that aspect of being able to show up for yourself and really hold yourself accountable to, are you working in the best ways to reach your goals? Are you showing up and doing the work to achieve what you want out of life? And remember, I always say this, it's what you can do for yourself. It's not about what other people can do for you. By you realizing as an individual that you have the power, you have the power to reach any of your goals. It's just about using tips and tricks like these to help you stay accountable to yourself, to help you create these check-ins to make sure that you're aligning and acting with what you want to achieve in life. And then, are you showing up and actually giving the energy towards these things, towards these goals that you say that you want? It's a big piece. And not only is it a big piece, it's a piece that you need to be able to motivate yourself to do for yourself. To be able to achieve anything, we need to know how to condition ourselves and how to really set ourselves up to succeed so that we all get that life that we truly long for, or that we want, or that we say we want. And really making sure our actions are actually lining up in that direction. Next up, we have the A. So that's going to be actionable and achievable. Okay, so this is really going to help you achieve. It's basically your action plan. How are you going to set yourself up with those stepping stones, those mini goals I talked about earlier? How can you actually physically achieve the goal that you want, that bigger goal? So it's about breaking down that big concept, that big goal that you want to achieve into manageable sub-goals. Okay, so think about how to accomplish that main goal. Okay, ask yourself questions. Do you have the tools? Do you have the skills currently right now in place? And if you don't, that's okay. But what do you need to obtain in your life to be able to get that bigger goal? Okay, really specifically looking at everything you need to achieve to set you up to reach that goal. Now, the more mini goals there are, that's great, because like I said earlier, it's going to help you build that confidence in yourself. And guys, let's be honest, we're a reward-driven culture. So when we get to check off that box, we get to give ourselves that little pat on the back, and that feels good. And that's okay that it feels good. So set yourself up with multiple mini goals so that you can continuously achieve them and start to feel better and better about yourself. This is really going to help with your confidence. It's going to help you realize that you have the ability. It's just about making it an attainable goal so that you can achieve those bigger things. So really setting yourself up to succeed here. And like I said, it almost motivates yourself. This is a huge motivating piece. When you start to check off those boxes and when you start to accomplish those mini tasks, like I said, you realize you have the ability. You've had the ability all along. It's just maybe you didn't really hold yourself accountable, or maybe you didn't really set yourself up to succeed, but writing down the steps to actually achieving these goals. Also, in this achievable section, you might want to consider how important is this goal to you, and what can you do to make it attainable? It may require, like I said, developing those new skills. And here's a much harder thing. It might also be changing an attitude that currently exists. So a lot of the time we can be really hard on ourselves and believe, I can't do this. I'm not smart enough. I'm not strong enough. I don't have the ability to do this. But in reality, if you break it down, most things are achievable. It's just making that action plan, making that step-by-step plan so that you can move towards that direction. This step is really, I promise you, that's meant to inspire, and it's actually meant to motivate you. It's not meant to discourage you because your goal is so big and far away. It's just designing a path, a step-by-step roadmap of how to achieve that bigger goal. So let's consider my example that I've been using of eating healthy and exercising on a daily or exercising in a more regular basis. So for that actionable piece, I'm going to start to look at what's my plan to get there? What's my plan to be healthy? And for me, like I said, this is not something I came with overnight. It's something I did a lot of reflection on. So for me and my path to get there, guys, don't forget, it might look very different for you. And that's okay. Remember what I said in measurable is make sure it's your definitions and make sure you're really owning it. Okay, so for my actionable piece, once again, my actionable piece, not yours. The steps that I put in place would be something like maybe not eating sugar, so removing it. Maybe it would also be removing starch or flour. And maybe it's doing this Sunday to Friday every single week. Okay, so 6 days a week, showing up in my life, not eating sugar, not eating starch, and not eating flour. Okay, so me and my partner, we really based our life change regarding eating habits around the 4-hour body. Okay, I really stressing again, my path, not everybody else's. So this is what we chose to do. So this was the actionable items that we put into place. So we didn't eat sugar, Sunday to Friday. We also didn't eat starch and not eating flour. So being very conscious of what I'm putting into my body. So that's for the eating healthy piece. Now for the exercise piece. Maybe it was that because I want to achieve those 5 days a week. Maybe my action plan to get there was naming specific things to do to obtain that 5 day a week. So maybe it's doing yoga Tuesday and Thursdays. Okay, that's something we like to do. It's something that really fits for us. Once again, that's us. So really looking at what's fitting for you and is it attainable in your life? So for us, it was that yoga Tuesday and Thursdays. Also, I decided to lift weights. I started to lift weights on different days. So starting to lift weights on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Now I tried to incorporate that with a walk or a run. Okay, so really making sure I'm building my body so that I can run. So my actionable items here were not eating sugar, starch, or flour during Sunday to Friday. So being very specific with what I want to achieve. And then it was to do yoga twice a week, so Tuesday and Thursdays. And then lifting weights and maybe a walk or running, so one of those cardio exercises. Okay, so it didn't specify if I had to run or walk certain days, just leaving it open so I can have that decision. Small decision, notice that, but deciding if I'm either walking or if I'm running. Okay, and usually setting that up prior. Maybe 2 of those days was a run and 1 of those was a walk. So really determining what that looks like for you. And I would encourage you to be specific about it. Like I said, what exercise are you doing? Sometimes when we say exercise, it kind of gets a little wishy-washy. We got to make the decision in the moment, and we end up being so exhausted after making so many decisions in our day-to-day that we tend to kind of push it off and maybe do it tomorrow. So be very specific here. And it's okay to change it. I'll talk about it in a bit in Timely. But no, I came back and I adjusted some of this. So maybe it was that I wanted to do yoga 3 days a week. And that's something we did instead. So Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And then it was lifting weights twice a week. So really looking at, is this achievable for you? Testing it out. And then maybe, like I said, that means coming back and adjusting it or tweaking it so that it really fits for you and it sets you up to succeed. So the R here, we're going to go to that, and that's going to be realistic and relevant. So really asking yourself, is this within my reach? Is this goal within my reach? So I looked at that big goal, remember, of eating healthy or eating right and making sure I'm exercising more regular. Okay, so really wondering, is that attainable for me? And when I broke that down to the actionable items, it really was. I have the time in my life that I can dedicate for stuff like that. So really setting myself and making that really a priority. Now, I want to mention here, sometimes we make that big excuse that we don't have time for anything. But my firm belief here is that if it's a priority, we always have time for it. Okay, so if something's a priority, and your goals should be, you shouldn't have a goal that's not a priority. It should be something that you're consciously working towards. And if it's not, maybe your goal, like I said, has to be readjusted. So really looking at that realistic and relevant. So goals are overall, they're really relevant to your life plan and how you want to show up in the world, who you want to be. So let's say I wanted to be that active 80-year-old. Well, then this is really lining up with that overall big goal. Okay. So eating healthy, really paying attention to what I'm doing to my body, putting into it and how I'm shaping it. That's really going to line up really good with me, hopefully having that condition my body and taking care of it enough so that when I'm 80, let's hope it's a little bit more kind to me. Okay, so really looking at, is this realistic and is this relevant? Also checking in with regards to that actionable. Are these steps manageable for you? So a piece for me with that example that I gave you guys was diets never worked. I've never really bought into them. I've never really tried them before. It just wasn't something I was good at. I didn't like limiting myself. So I had to really view this change in eating habits as a change in lifestyle. So it was really a change that I wanted to achieve and that I was willing to show up and change in my life. And I had to look at that future-wise. Am I setting myself up to succeed here? So really looking at, is this sustainable? So the fact of eating no sugar, no flour, no starch from Sunday to Friday, it was attainable for me. And only because I had that one day that I could eat those foods. So if I had a craving during the week, which I got to admit, Nutella is definitely one of my favorite tasty treats. So if I had those cravings throughout the week, I could put it aside and say, you know what? Not today, but I will have you on Saturday. Okay? So really honoring that. And guys, I'm human. So some days I bail. Some days I went for the jar of Nutella. And then it's about picking yourself back up and starting again, okay? Continuing on and honoring those goals. It's not about never, ever straying outside. It's about, what do you do when you do stumble? What do you do when you make a mistake and you don't live within those set of attainable goals or that mini goals that you've set up for yourself? Maybe you have a bad day. Maybe, let's say one day your emotions do get the better of you. And then you fall and you have maybe something not within that eating day. It's also about being able to pick yourself back up and realize, you know what? I'm human. It happens. Now, how can I set myself up to succeed next time? So really taking that bump or that stumble and really helping it move you ahead. So if you look up in our pantry, you'll see a big willpower sign by the Nutella. So then when I go to have that reactionary, immediate gratification, I'm reminded about my bigger goals. So guys, once again, really setting yourself up here. So for us, that Saturdays, by the time we got there, I assure you, we have a pretty large list of what we want to eat. So that was attainable for us. That was really something that we could align in our day-to-day lives to set us up to succeed. Now, lastly, let's look at the T, and the T is going to stand for that timely piece. So guys, be realistic with your time frames. It's all about setting yourself up to succeed here, but it's also about motivating yourself. So make sure you have those target dates. That's going to help you stay accountable. It's going to help you have to check in and make sure that you're working towards those goals and you're using those actions. You're really showing up and working towards that bigger goal by completing those mini goals. So this timely piece is going to help, like I said, you be accountable, okay? Really helping you stay on that strict timeline. Now, the thing I like about this piece is it allows you to check in at that set time and really ask yourself the questions like, is this working for me or does something need to be adjusted or modified? So like I had mentioned in the previous sections, it's all about, is this working for you? Is this what you want to achieve? Do you feel like you're really making that progress? Remember when I looked at those, I think it was the attainable. So really making that action plan of how I want to achieve it. And I had set up those 3 days a week for the weights and the cardio. But in reality, that yoga piece really was a much better structure for me. So once I had allowed that timeline, and I think mine was May 1st, it was a date I gave myself. So at that time frame, I really checked in and said, you know what, am I feeling good about this? Do I feel like I'm, benefiting from it? Do I feel like I'm really moving towards what I want to achieve? And so I had to adjust it to make that goal more attainable for me, to make it really work with my schedule and fit to set me up for success. So those target dates, it doesn't have to be the completion date. You could mark it as a check-in. So like I said, for us, we chose to do this as a change in lifestyle. So there was no end date really. It was just about us checking in and seeing if it's still fitting for us, if it's still working and helping us move towards that bigger attainable goal. So now that I walked you through what SMART goals are and really kind of talking about the importance of why setting goals up for ourselves is really crucial, and it can really help us succeed and really work towards that defined goal that we want to actually attain. I also want to have a look at something that's a bit more abstract. Okay, so let's say it's not that pound weightage, or it's not exercise days that are very much, you're able to set those specific days a week. So I can talk about one that I've done before, and for me, it was around anxiety. So the anxiety piece for me can sometimes get pretty crippling. It wasn't anything that really held me back from showing up and doing my job, but definitely stuff on a social scale. It really made me at times not be able to participate in as much as I would want to. Also, really restricting me from showing up in big social situations, anything with like big crowds of people, or maybe trying stuff outside my comfort zone. So for me, this is something I really addressed in a past job, with really helping coach people through it through a topic that we did earlier in the podcast, but it was about DBT skills, so dialectical behavioral therapy. So luckily, I had a whole bunch of tools going into this change in my life. So I definitely started to incorporate them. So what I did is I sat down one evening and really looked at what were some SMART goals associated with really addressing my anxiety levels. So first, I started with that specific piece. So what was my goal? My goal here was to have less episodes of anxiety and to be able to really be present and show up and interact the way that I always want to show up. And that's really that present, in the moment individual. So these episodes were really kind of hindering that, not allowing me to live a version of my best life. So that specific piece was around wanting to be able, first of all, to get tools to manage those episodes, but also to have a healthy kind of regiment in place to help impact those episodes or that anxiety level on a positive way. So really allowing me to have that ritual to positively affect my anxiety to the point where it was more controllable and more manageable in my day-to-day life. So something measurable for me. So because that was pretty abstract and I didn't really have something that I can formulate that measure, or I can really, like the weight, I didn't have something tangible to lock it to. I decided my measurable piece was going to be keeping track, like a daily journal. It was making sure that I'm writing in how were my days going. Okay, so that was a measurable piece. So that when I got to the timely, I was able to reflect back and see how that was working for me. So after a couple of months, I went back through the journal and I got to see if what I had put in place was actually making an impact. So that was my way of measuring it. And then, of course, I had that reflection piece to be able to look and see how the day-to-days were going. Was I having as many, or were my mini goals really helping me line up and allow my anxiety to not be so overwhelming? So the actionable, it was stuff I put in place, like I said. It was stuff like making sure I wake up and I meditate, really dedicating that time of my life and really grounding myself before I started a day. Also, it was things like Tibetan rituals. So it was a ritual that I would do every morning to prep myself and once again, really actively get myself in that present state. Now, other actionable things that I can do, or that I did, was the exercise was a huge asset for me and my anxiety. Also, it was the food, limiting sugar and caffeine. So those were all actionable things that I put into place to help reduce my anxiety. Then I looked at the relevant. Is this realistic? Am I showing up? Am I able to show up every day and practice these rituals, practice these things to help me reduce my anxiety? And for me, it was. But remember, like I said, it's going to be different for everybody. Everybody's going to have a little bit different of a roadmap. And it's okay. Take what works from other people and leave the rest and make your own. Okay, that's going to set you up to succeed because it's making it your own. It's making it more compatible and realistic with your lifestyle. And then the timely piece. So once again, this was another lifestyle change for me. This was something that I wanted to set up to be a routine to start my days. So it wasn't so much that end goal, it was more of that check-in for the timely. So I set a point that was 3 months and then 6 months. So I could really evaluate if what I was doing was allowing me to reach that specific goal of reducing my anxiety. The great thing is it's had huge impacts for me, and it's really allowed me to live a better quality life. Now, the thing is, it doesn't mean my anxiety disappeared at all. It means that it's a work in progress, and it's still something I have to practice on a regular basis so that I can benefit from it and really minimize and have my anxiety more on that manageable level. So guys, sometimes these things are not reaching the end of a goal and that's it. Sometimes it's a lifestyle change and you got to be okay with that. So that's why those actionable kind of mini goals, that's going to be the area that you feel good with. It's going to allow you to tangibly do stuff and finish stuff. And that makes you feel good, and it makes you show up and interact with your life on a more positive note. Really showing up and acknowledging that what you're doing is helping you sustain and helping you achieve that bigger quality goal. So guys, in wrap, setting goals is almost like creating that roadmap for yourself. What's the destination that you want to achieve? And what are you going to do? And how do you really want to travel to reach that specific goal? Be specific. Nobody can define that for you. You have to figure out what you want to achieve. And then it's really about setting up that course, that destination, and showing up for yourself and really working towards it. Also, I find it allows you that clarity. It allows you to really understand what's needed to accomplish it. So maybe if you have to learn mini tools or some other tool to help enable you reach that bigger goal, it's allowing you, like I said, to plot that destination and really set the course. If not, sometimes we see our goal as way too far away, where we stand and we tend to think, you know what, I'm never going to get there. It's impossible. I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to show up and attempt to live towards or work towards that goal in my life. I want to tell you, it's all within your control. So I would encourage you, go get those goals identified, figure out what you want to achieve, and then break it down to what you need to do to actually achieve it. We are impressive creatures, and I don't feel like we give ourselves enough credit all the time. So you can do it. It's just about showing up, really putting your time and energy in towards achieving what you want in life, really taking those step-to-step actions and really focusing on that main goal that you actually want to achieve. At the end of the day, it comes to a point. Do you actually want to achieve these goals, or do you just enjoy daydreaming about it? Now, only you can ever make that call. And just remember, you're always in charge of what you go after in life and where you decide to dedicate your energy. That's all within your control. As always, I appreciate every single person for tuning in, and I hope you have an extremely fulfilling, successful day. Please, guys, take the time to go about and rate us and leave a review. It goes a long way in trying to get this information out there. We all are trying our best, and with some tools and a little encouragement, I really feel we can help more people tap into their own potential and realize that, guys, it's always up to us to power ourselves.